and explained my basics for weapon safety in combat. My military and police training and 50 years of firearm handling had served me well, and I was glad to teach a few noobs what to do and how to be safe doing it. All guns are treated, number one, all guns are treated like they are loaded, even if you're sure they are not. No exceptions. Anyone in our group will take a gun from someone not being safe, always. If you have to shoot someone, shoot them at least twice to be sure they're dead. Your gun is your responsibility. Keep it clean and keep it loaded. Always have a gun on you. If you're sleeping, have it in your pocket or at arm's reach. Before you go to the bathroom in the morning, the gun goes around your waist or in your pocket. Be ready at all times. Know your target and what's behind it. You're responsible for every bullet you fire. I explained briefly about pocket carrying a small revolver or small pistol every single day. Every single person in our group has to have a pocket gun as a backup 24/7. It will save your life. I handed our little I handed out little orange earplugs to everyone and showed them how they fit snugly in every size ear, and asked the group to gather around and pay close attention to the weapons demonstration. First up was Nick. I knew my son-in-law could shoot, but I remembered he was a bit shaky at it. I showed everyone how to load and unload an M4 rifle, where the safe and fire switch was, and what the charging handle did. I handed Nick an empty rifle and a full magazine and asked him to load the gun. He grabbed it, slapped the magazine in, gave it a hard tap, and then pulled the charging handle back, letting it fly forward, and he pressed it slightly to make sure the handle was locked in place. He placed the rifle on safe and performed a quick peek in the chamber to make sure the round was properly seated. Perfect. I could see my daughter was watching him from the hillside and smiling at Nick's performance. I demonstrated a basic sight picture for the group and let Nick shoot a few rounds. He was fine now for close range. On full auto, he did what most shooters do and held the trigger too long, letting rounds fly over the target. I explained about short, controlled bursts and tried it again and did much better. The rest of them were nodding as the lesson continued. I handed the M4 and 2 mags to Molly, an expert who needs no training, and asked her to show Ashley and Maria the ropes. I taught hundreds of people how to shoot over the years and learned new female shooters do best when a woman teaches them. Molly was perfect for the job. The girls moved to the side of us, still safely clear of downrange, so Nick and I could continue his lesson. I showed him the basic operation of the Benelli 12-gauge shotgun, and he did fine when I handed it to him. He was smiling at the damage buckshot does at close range. I explained the shells contain 9 millimeter round lead balls coming at 1,300 feet per second, all at the same time. Buckshot was faster at putting 9 holes in a target than anyone could do with a handgun. Like my wife, his mother-in-law, he loved the Benelli shotgun and would carry one whenever practical. Nick was a great guy, and we got along well. Most of all, he listened well and understood new ideas quickly and could both lead and follow. For someone who never served in the military, he was a natural at this. He was a great fit for Julia and a fine example for Nick Jr. I could not have picked a better man for my daughter, even if I tried. A combat-style 12-gauge is a very powerful and versatile gun, one of the best for home defense, but in my opinion it has 3 drawbacks. Recoil is harsh, it only holds 7 rounds, and the range is limited to 50 yards with most ammo. With slugs, 100 yards is doable, but shotgun slugs are not as accurate as a rifle bullet. The big plus is each round will most likely kill anyone you shoot. If the bad guy is wearing bulletproof vest, he will still have the shit knocked out of him, and the sound of the shotgun being loaded or racked is a very big deterrent in the dark of night. I prefer my trusty short-barreled M4 in 5.56 or an AR-10 in 308 for more power and range when necessary. To be honest, the gun people carry doesn't matter. It's the shooter who gets the job done in the end. We all have our favorite guns, and as long as you're doing your job, I don't care what gun you prefer. A quick handgun lesson with my Glock 9mm went as well as everything else. Nick asked when he could get a pocket gun, and I said to look under the front seat of the Beast in the hard case and pick one. I reminded him all guns are loaded always. We took a break as the women were still shooting a handgun, and I sent Nick to get the other 2 women and Nick Jr. so they could get familiar with the basics of firearms that are commonly used here. He came back with the remaining Excuse me. He came back with the remaining girls and his son and a noticeable bulge in his front pocket. Looked like he picked up the Glock 43X, the largest pocket gun we had. It held 15 9mm rounds and was a good size for a tall person like Nick to conceal easily. I prefer a revolver for pocket carry, but there's no wrong answer as long as you can hit the person you're shooting at. I've carried both and I've had to defend myself with both. They both work as intended. The two girls I placed on my mental watch list were not happy about having to handling or shooting the guns. Molly had zero luck getting them to even try. I knew now we'd have to stop in Kingman and get rid of them. I let Molly teach Nick Jr. the basics of gun safety. As a 9-year-old, he was used to having female teachers, and he always listened to them intently. So there's no need to change it up now. The boy could shoot an M4 rifle very well, and as he got older and bigger, he would continue the lessons with the larger firearms. He'd already proved himself capable of shooting at the bad guys. We'd work on his aim later. Like everyone else, Nick Jr. carried a pocket pistol, but I chose it for him. A Colt 38 Detective Special hammerless it was at least 60 years old, but it still worked perfectly. With 6 rounds, one more than my Smith & Wesson revolvers, it was still very small and concealable and completely reliable. He kept it in a leather pocket holster, and it covered the trigger completely to help prevent an accidental discharge. Nick was also taught how to remove the gun from his pocket, with the holster still attached, increasing his safety. If he had to draw an emergency, in his haste, the holster would catch on his pocket's inside edge and stay put until he needed it or wanted to put the gun back in his pocket. In reality, as soon as he walked into the compound, the dogs fell in love with Nick Jr. He'd never be without at least a dozen of them by his side from then on. He became the official dog whisperer and would calm down even the meanest mutt with ease. I don't think Nick Jr. ever used his backup pistol at any point during the long winter. I gathered all the newbies together so the boys, the wife, Julie, and Molly could show them a basic Army fire team movement. It allowed quick coordinated fire and was one of the easiest ways to provide overwhelming force to an advancing entrenched enemy. A group of 4 or 5 could move in any direction with only hand taps or pointing. Quietly and quickly, one person on the team could either walk backwards or look over their shoulders constantly, scanning up and down and watching for threats. It was all I could do to teach them today. It was all I would teach them today. My side was hurting, and the murky light was turning into darkness. It was time to go. An hour and a half later, we had reburied the stash and the backup bunker and replaced the snow so it looked less dug up until morning when the new snow would cover it again. When we got on our way, I fired up the ham radio and requested help from the Mormons in Kingman. I knew their call sign, and they came back with OK-46, a code they used to tell us which mile marker gate to enter the property at. The wife was driving when we stopped at mile marker 46 so Gus could jump out and open the gate. We moved a little forward and stopped 100 yards inside the property, hidden behind an old dilapidated airplane hangar. The landing strip was somewhere out there in the desert, reclaimed by the sand long ago, and it was now covered in snow, unseen and unused for decades. Within a minute, headlights attached to a homemade armored truck, part semi-truck and part Amazon delivery vehicle, came speeding up with rifles sticking out of every window and a gun turret on the roof. It slid to a stop directly in front of the beast. The Mormons were ready for anything, and I appreciated it. The leader of the group and the owner of all this desert was Brother Bob. He yelled hello from behind the wheel, and he got out to greet us. I had met him in Phoenix at a marksmanship match 15 years ago. From the Second Amendment stickers and profane political signs on our vehicles, we knew we were destined to be friends. He and his family owned 5,000 acres of empty desert for generations. A person could wander around out here for days and never find a house or a building. They were so well disguised, even during the days of rage, no one came close to finding them. A few minutes later, I pulled him aside and walked him a bit as I explained what I needed, and he was glad to help. Brother Bob said if those 2 girls hated it here, they could always walk to Kingman and live in one of the abandoned mobile homes there. We all got back in our vehicles and followed Brother Bob down the 15 minutes of dusty road to his family ranch. In complete darkness, you could easily get lost, and even as we rounded the last bend in the road, there was no visible light. I knew Brother Bob had at least 500 people working here, and it appeared his flock was well trained to hide all illumination sources at night. His place had wind turbines off in the distance, slowly turning out power in the night. When I was here last time in daylight, I remembered he had well water pumps and a dozen of the old marine Quonset huts neatly buried, all in the immediate vicinity. Now in pitch black, it covered in a layer of snow, invisible to all. From above, they appeared like hills and shrubs, and the wind turbines looked like something the government built back in the 2000s. The thick piled dirt also masked the heat signature of everything under the buildings, according to Brother Bob. At night, with the thick blanket of snow, he was completely invisible, even to those who knew he was there. His quick tour showed the enormous vegetable growing operation under the metal huts. The artificial light from grow lamps provided enough sunlight to feed hundreds of people from his harvest. His ability to hide so much light was impressive. We bedded down for the night and got up before what passes for sunrise now. It to an incredible breakfast, the likes that we haven't had in at least 6 weeks. Veggies, fruit, and eggs. Brother Bob had a huge secret. He had chickens. Egg-laying chickens. He must be the last person in the West to have chickens. He said his big rooster was still fertile, and the offspring were also. So he kept harvesting them as long as he could. He said they only eat half the eggs produced and hatch the rest and use them for trade with other families out here in the desert. I begged him for some eggs, and he obliged with 6 dozen eggs securely nestled in an old plastic ice chest. It would give us more seating to the beast and be a feast once we got home. To repay the good night's sleep, excellent breakfast, and the tremendous kindness of so many eggs, I let Brother Bob know where the backup bunker was. I explained someday he might get stuck out in the desert, cut off from home, and supplies, the radio, the water, the guns might be useful. He thanked me, understanding the importance of my gesture. At this point, our group was spread out, talking to Brother Bob's wives and family, enjoying the human contact and refreshing farm life atmosphere. The 2 girls who were destined to stay seemed to like the underground gardens, so Brother Bob offered them jobs. In exchange for hard work and fellowship, they'd get all the veggies and eggs they could eat. He needed labor, and they needed a home. Without hesitation, the 2 girls jumped at the offer. They said they were tired of running, and all the gunfire scared them to death. I said nothing and let them think leaving was their own idea. Quickly, we said our goodbyes and we loaded up the beast to head out. One of Brother Bob's people led us back to the gate and opened it and closed it with the wave as we headed down US 11 to Kingman, interchange to I-40. I updated the compound with our estimated arrival time. Brother Bob had warned us the bridge over the Hoover Dam was damaged beyond repair, and the group living in that giant concrete structure was dug in and not friendly, making the alternative crossing, driving across the actual dam, impossible. All the locals had known for 75 years. The government had a huge underground storage facility inside the Hoover Dam, with water, food, power. They could last for decades without human contact, and they would. The dam was to be avoided, so we headed south to Laughlin, Nevada, and the I-40 where we could cross the Colorado River. Brother Bob's extended family held the bridge in the town there, and they'd be expecting us. Once in Nevada, we made good time back to Vegas Valley. We took some fire from a small brick building in Boulder City, but we sped past the badly aimed rounds without returning a shot. As the snow flurries kicked up, we kept heading home. The big, heavy beast was unaffected by a little snow on the ground. 2 hours later, we were outside the compound. Julia and Molly didn't recognize their old neighborhood. Julia said, "Looks like a bombed-out shithole with a giant misshapen gate and a pile of cars in front of it." I said, "Yep, that was intentional. Anyone who ventures by will think it's abandoned or full of nothing but worth stealing. So far, it's worked perfectly." Once safely inside, Steve and Edie were thrilled to hold their oldest child again. Lots of tears of joy and hugs for everyone. Our dog packs surrounded the newcomers, and Nick Jr. was the pack's new favorite person immediately. The pack had adjusted well to sleeping outside, using sheds and patios for the shelter, along with all the blankets we could find. 11 dogs were too many for the bunker to hold. Our cat Peaches immediately became more affectionate once he wasn't sharing his home with the canines anymore. Steve and Edie introduced themselves and hugged Ashley and Maria, and within minutes they could tell the boys were smitten, and it was fine by them. No one knew how long the winter would last, and companionship could go a long way keeping the boys happy and focused. That night, at dinner, we had a feast of eggs, beans, crackers, and Kool-Aid. A simple meal we got to share, and it meant the world to us because We were all on the same table for the first time in many years, and we made sure our guests felt at home, and it was honestly the nicest meal we've had since the bombs exploded. Life was easier for several weeks. We could spread the work among so many working able bodies, but after a month of 10 people living in the bunker, we needed more room. The boys came up with the idea first. They'd move into the two houses sharing a brick wall with our backyard and the bunker. We'd all have more room and they could still take shelter quickly underground if need be. As married couple, Steve and Edie and the wife and I knew why they wanted more privacy, and we said it was a great idea. We helped the two new couples set up a secure hidden place in the empty houses. With our backup power supplies and proper installation, they'd be warm and safe. After the success of the first move, Julia and Nick were eager to move with their little family too. We had plenty of houses to choose from, and they picked the one to our north boundary. It had a good clear view of the approaches east and west, and they could easily retreat to the bunker when needed. Nick Sr. still wasn't comfortable with his dog being constantly surrounded by large dogs, but the more he saw of it, the more he knew his boy was fine, and he was worried needlessly. Nick Sr. was never a dog person, but his son sure was. Steve and Edie and Molly stayed in the bunker with us. Their old house was across the street on the outer facing wall of our wall of cars, but after 3 months in the bunker, they were happy keeping the wife and me company. With their dogs now living outside, we had an empty room in the back to use as another bedroom. And if you didn't mind the hum of generators and the cat box. 3 months after the burn, we had a nice, tight community, safe and hidden. It went on this way for many years with only the occasional wandering idiot coming around. We were always wary of these men because I used the same trick to gather intel on the wall zone of Flagstaff. Our pack of dogs would run them off, and they never tried it twice. 6 years into the long winter, it had been mostly peaceful. We had few squabbles and fewer fights. The compound was huge for just 10 people, and there was always something to do. It seemed each of us picked good partners, and all of us respected each other's privacy. Our scavenger hunts were larger and less frequent since we used the beast and a flatbed to haul food and supplies from the stores farther and farther away from the compound. The city seemed empty when we were out searching, but our drones above told the real story. The heat signatures of hundreds of people were now visible with the cold nuclear winter in full force. Human body temperatures and scattered small fires could be seen easily with remote-controlled aircraft we flew every time we stepped out of our gate. Daytime temps were around 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and nights were far below zero. The Las Vegas Valley had 3.5 million people when the bombs went off on the coast, and the best guess was fewer than 10,000 remained, with many concentrated in what remained of the Strip corridor. A few other groups were living in smaller resorts around town. Many of these groups had ham radios and seemed peaceful, but a few were too friendly and wanted to draw people in and steal everything they had stashed or saved over the past 6 years. That's how someone found the fortress. Over the years, I've made an acquaintance with the people in the fortress, Carla and her brothers, Doug, and Doug and his group in the last holdout. Carla's group was buttoned up tight and standoffish and did not interact with us, which was fine. We offered to trade supplies with them, but they always declined. I even offered to help secure their parking lot to help keep the idiots out, popping up monthly, but Carla was not interested in this either. So I let it go. I told Carla and Doug they ever needed our help to shine a red light flashlight at any of our cameras for an emergency or a yellow lens for anything else. I made sure everyone in our group knew about the signals and we went about doing our own thing. In the dead of night, in the long winter, September of 2056, I heard a vehicle crash nearby. Very few vehicles were on the road these days. The compound vehicles all worked because we made our own biodiesel for the generators and diesel-powered trucks to run on. Others, I'm sure, were charging electric vehicles with wind turbines or generators that were also powered by propane or diesel. The crash was close, and seconds later, it was followed by gunfire, 2 rounds of first, followed by a steady stream of automatic fire from several directions, from a dozen or more guns. There was a full-blown battle going on next door. Everyone heard it and came running to our home, where we had an above-ground armory set up. I was getting old, and my knees hated climbing those stairs up and down in the bunker all day long. So the wife and I set up camp in the middle of our old living room, securing all the other rooms and boxes with trash to look like an it was abandoned to anyone able to get a look inside. We also turned our old bedroom into a weapons locker and equipment staging area. The 9 of us started getting our battle gear on and making sure every gun we needed was loaded and had spare mags. I signaled to the wife to button up the bunker and to monitor the security systems and radio. It was a drill we had practiced at least twice a month, making us one of the few well-trained groups still surviving in the middle of winter. Our resident canine handler, Nicholas, he decided Nick Jr. was out when he was 15 when he turned 15 early this year, signaled a dog pack and grabbed his favorite M4 as 20 dogs came running to lay down near us, listening to Nicholas for their next command. The handheld radio came to life, and the wife informed us someone was attacking the fortress on the south side of their building, and a red light was pointing at a camera. She went on to describe it as 4 vehicles and more approaching. I asked Molly to grab the 37mm grenade launcher. Nick already had his Benelli and 2 extra bandoliers of buckshot. Julia picked up an M4 and a vest full of mags. The boys were already ready with AR-10s and all the ammo they could pack. Their wives were also loaded for bear with shotgun and a short M4. Ashley was our medic, but fully trained in SWAT tactics and could go with us. I carried my trusty M4 and all the ammo I could cram into my pouches. Steve and Edie grabbed AR-10s, and they set up on the top of the corner house facing the fortress. Nick would stay in the compound and shoot anyone trying to approach from the west parking lot. I could tell everyone had on body armor, and each was strapping on goggles and helmets and securing gloves. It was very cold outside with a vicious wind. We had to fight 2 battles, the attackers and the long winter. I said loudly, "Firearms check." We headed to the beast, and as we prepared and ready as any military unit I'd ever trained with. I was proud of how well they'd worked together. I could teach them nothing new at this point, and more importantly, they could do it without me. I was 74, and that was not a good age for a SWAT team member. Everyone carried a mixture of 9mm Glocks, Berettas, and SIGs. All were checked, and I noticed everyone tapped the pocket to make sure their backup gun was there. Nicholas ran to the gate and opened it. The dogs would keep anyone from getting in while we rendered aid to the neighbors. Nicholas would take up the corner with the other grenade launcher. It used to be in a pillbox pointing at the last holdout, but since we were friends now, I only had a 308 pointed at him. In well under 90 seconds, we were out the front gate, and I drove the 1 block to the apartment building lot and yelled, "Brace!" and hit the closed fire door. Fire truck emergency gate at 40 miles an hour with a 25,000-pound armored beast. Crashing through it in the truck was easy. Hitting the brakes and stopping before I ran into the building was harder, but I managed. With a full deployment out the back, 2 at a time, we killed anyone in the vehicle and anyone on the ground floor who shot at us, and it seemed everyone was shooting at us. Our vests and plate armor saved a few lives that day. We reacted like we trained. Violent action and overwhelming spirit firepower were the key to success in combat. The 6 vehicles that hit the fortress were slow to dismount, with half electing to fire from the warmth of their vehicles. Using regular cars as an assault meant small doors and they were low to the ground. Sitting in a car with a winter coat, the marauders were easy targets. Molly put a 37mm high explosive round into the hood of a car shooting at us from 30 yards out. It made a nice fireball for everyone to enjoy. As we cleared the bottom floor, the parking lot and the stairs, sporadic gunfire could be heard from above. We didn't want to get hit by friendly fire, so we waited and watched for anyone approaching. Behind us, I could hear the dogs killing someone, loud and vicious, like we wanted. Whoever it was screamed for their mommy, but all they got was a bullet to the head from Nicholas. 2 shots from a rifle, and soon the dogs were quiet. Later, we found out a couple of wounded attackers had jumped our wall and retreated west from the poorly planned attack on the fortress. The dogs caught them before they could even left the backyard, and Nicholas put a bullet in each of them to stop the carnage. For a long pause in the shooting, I yelled for Carla. With a long pause in the shooting, I yelled for Carla, and she answered back, "Heads up," as she tossed the dead body of an attacker out the window from the 3rd floor. Upstairs, someone was putting out a fire near a south-facing window. The old dry chemical extinguishers worked great, even when they were very, very expired. We went upstairs, and without talking, the 2 groups swept the brooms, looking for bodies while ignoring the still lingering odor of tear gas in the air. 10 of the mixed group went back downstairs to look for stragglers and anyone hiding or wounded. Carly was frowning so hard it looked like her face would crack. She told us her people had done great, but they still had wounded, and her brother-in-law didn't look like he was going to make it. Hearing this, our medic Ashley stepped into the room with the injured man and began to save the brother-in-law's life. Jonesy was so grateful he pissed off his wife with all his compliments he showered on Ashley. It was weird, but harmless. Carla said they were winning the battle and holding back the marauders right up until one of them, the attackers, shot a tear gas canister through a window, and it got stuck behind the mattress covering it, catching fire quickly and spreading to the carpets and the rest of the room. The smoke and tear gas combined blinded and choked her group, and they began to retreat and fall to the fallback area when they heard the tremendous crash and the sustained gunfire from the direction of the corner nearest the compound. Carla was grateful we reacted so quickly to the red light and saved their butts. I estimated the whole battle lasted 4 minutes. The fire only spread so quickly because after so many years in the apartments, the fortress was filthy and was now a fire hazard. We would have to reevaluate our own homes in the compound to see if we had the same applied to us. It did, and we cleaned it up before we also had a fire. Before Carla could even ask, I offered her group a place to stay. I had 10 empty houses in the center of the compound, and her group was welcome to take as many of them as she needed. Carla was grateful and agreed the damaged apartment was not safe anymore, and it seemed someone knew they were where they were. Staying here was asking for more trouble. She talked to everyone in the group and see where the communications leak might be, and she started moving her people across the street immediately. It took 3 days for Carla's family, 7 adults and 3 teenagers, to completely cross the street with everything they could salvage. They also had enough food and water for weeks on hand. Once fully briefed and trained in our tactics, that would give us 17 fighters, a sizable and dangerous force if we trained well. I think this is another good place to stop. I'm going to call it for now. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.